Revealed, how a brave cleaner silenced a billionaire sheik in an incredible life-changing moment. The grand ballroom shimmered as soft light silhouetted the beaming faces of the wealthy elite. Alma stood rooted to the spot, her heart racing as she watched the opulence cascade around her. She clenched a small stack of papers in her hands, shaking with anxiety, yet a fire burned in her chest. How could they celebrate when so many in her community struggled to make ends meet? The lavish new hotel, towering over their modest homes, seemed like a giant's fist punching down on their dreams. Even in her worn work dress, Alma radiated warmth amid the teeth of glitz and glamour. She was a single mother, a cleaner, working tirelessly at the very hotel these elite guests had gathered to glorify. Her 2 children, Mia and Leo, waited for her at home, where a flickering light barely illuminated their small kitchen. That light was hope. It flickered for them, urging Alma to fight this battle. As the evening progressed, Alma felt the adrenaline spooling tighter. The sheik, a figure cloaked in excess, held court from the center of the ballroom, surrounded by an attentive crowd. His arrogance couldn't steep far enough in the air. They all clinked glasses, unaware of how their riches crushed the dreams of countless working families beneath their glass towers. A lump rose in her throat. Enough was enough. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Alma's palms began to sweat as she stepped forward. She could hear the hushed whispers, the collective breath of her community behind her, urging her on. With trembling hands, she approached the microphone. The glimmering chandeliers felt oppressive, and fear gripped her, but her children's faces flashed before her eyes. "Excuse me," she shouted, her voice slicing through the buzz. Gasps rippled through the crowd, falling heavy on the air. "I am Alma, a cleaner in this hotel, and I have something to say." She took a deep breath. The room fell silent, her neighbors' wide eyes encouraging her. "This hotel might shine bright, but underneath, it's hurting us." Her words stormed through the polished halls, shaking the stony silence. The exploitation of workers. The crush of local businesses. We deserve better. Alma felt the surge of her community's support, the mere notion of their struggles rolling off her tongue brewed strength within her. Around the room, faces lit up with recognition, murmurs ignited into a chorus of solidarity. The sheik stood frozen, disbelief etched across his face. Alma took a step closer, her confidence swelling. With every word, she became a voice for every heart silenced by power. Still, warmth brushed Alma's cheeks with dread, the thrill of courage mixed with the fear of losing everything she had fought for. As they rallied behind her, the question lingered, would this act of defiance cost her what mattered most? She looked around at familiar faces, brave and resilient, yet the tremor of uncertainty amplified her resolve. Could her bravery spark the change her community desperately needed, or would it shatter everything? The silence that followed Alma's bold declaration felt like an eternity. She glanced around the room, a vast sea of shocked faces reflecting a mix of horror and disbelief. Then, out of the stillness, one voice rose, an older woman from her neighborhood, Mrs. Perez. "Bravo, Alma. We stand with you." Her shout cut through the tension, igniting a spark. Others began to cheer, their voices joining together, creating a swell of support that coursed through the ballroom. What began as whispers of commotion grew into a wave of solidarity that washed over the room. The sheik's expression twisted from shock to anger, a vein pulsing at his temple as he struggled for control. Alma's heart raced faster. She felt the warmth of encouragement surrounding her, each voice fueling her fire. "This isn't just about me. This is for our children," she continued, emboldened. "For every parent working 2 jobs, for every family forced to choose between rent and groceries. The chandeliers above swayed ever so slightly, as if echoing the tremors of discomfort rolling through the crowd. The wealthy elites began to fidget, their pearls and diamonds seemingly heavy with guilt. But then, the sheik cut in, his voice booming with a sharp edge. "Enough of this nonsense. You dare tarnish this celebration?" The authority in his tone commanded attention, and Alma felt the weight of his disdain settle on her shoulders. Yet, she stood taller. "I will not be silent. Not while we suffer." Tears pricked at the corners of her eyes, the pain of her struggles pouring into those words. She turned slightly, scanning the crowd, her vulnerability morphing into strength as she made eye contact with Mia and Leo's classmates, children peering out from behind their parents, wide-eyed and attentive. "Do you want your future to be dictated by greed?" Alma asked, her voice trembling but fierce. "Do you want to live your lives under these shadows, or do we stand together and rise?" The shift was palpable. Alma could see their faces softening, even the well-dressed adults who had turned their backs on the hardship outside the hotel's walls. Some shifted their weight, grappling with the uncomfortable truth she laid bare. In that moment, the room's energy shifted again. Murmurs began anew this time, a mixture of contemplation and unease. Some clinked their glasses together awkwardly, as if unsure how to respond. Others exchanged glances, a newfound determination glimmering in their eyes. Amongst it all, Alma caught a glimpse of a young man stepping forward. Clad in an expensive suit, he stood up, surprising the crowd. "She's right. We have a choice," he announced. "We can't ignore their plight anymore. We must start reform." Gasps erupted, the intensity of the moment sinking in deeper. Alma could feel the ground shifting underfoot. All at once, a realization hit her: this wasn't just her mission. It was blossoming into something much larger, a movement of community rising from beneath the weight of oppression. Yet, the sheik's theatrical glare pierced through the layered layers of luxury and fragility. "You will regret this, Alma," he hissed, rage simmering in his eyes. She felt a shiver of fear but stood firm, refusing to back down. "No more regret," she shot back. "Only action." The applause thundered, and Alma realized she was standing at the precipice of change. But as her heart ached with hope, a shiver ran down her spine. What would happen next? Was this the birth of a movement, or merely the beginning of retaliation? As the noise of solidarity enveloped her, uncertainty loomed just as heavily as the opulent chandeliers above. The fight wasn't over. In that moment of clarity, she understood, this confrontation could spark more than her community's awakening. But what would they sacrifice to keep it alive? The energy in the ballroom crackled like electricity. Alma steadied herself, glancing back at the cheering crowd. It was no longer just a few voices, it felt like a chorus of dreams longing to be realized. But the sheik's fury hung in the air, heavy and dangerous, like a storm cloud ready to burst. "Don't be fooled, people," the sheik roared, regaining his composure. "She seeks to divide us. We are here to celebrate success, not dwell in misery." His words were sharp, but Alma sensed a tremor behind them: fear. Success built on the backs of others isn't true success. Alma countered, her voice rising above the din. She could hear her own heartbeat thumping in her ears as she pushed past the nausea building in her stomach. "You all see the fine clothes, the fancy cars. But what do they mean if our neighbors are starving? If kids can't afford school supplies? Is this the legacy we want?" For a moment, the room fell silent again, absorbing her words. The clinking glasses grew quieter, the murmurs turned into whispers, and a collective breath held tight as tension filled the space. One by one, faces began to change. Alma spotted a woman in a lavish gown, her face pinched with concern. A man with a glittering cufflink loosened his tie. It was as if the sheik's lavish display of wealth had started to lose its luster, under the weight of the truth stirring in the hearts of those present. Look around you. Open your eyes. Alma urged, sweeping her gaze across the room. Can we truly celebrate while our friends and families struggle? Real success should lift everyone up, not just the privileged few. An elderly gentleman started to clap softly, a joyful sound that resonated like a bell. Soon, others joined in, the applause growing in volume, shaking off years of complacency. For Alma, the sound was intoxicating, a sweet mixture of hope and defiance. She felt buoyed by their support, but in the corner of her mind, the sheik loomed ominously, his anger had morphed into cunning. You underestimate the power of money and influence, Alma. You think this applause means something? What if I take everything from you? Your family? Your home? His voice dripped with menace, and the room quieted again, the air thick with anticipation. Maybe he could. It was a thought that wrapped around Alma's heart like a vine, squeezing tightly. She swallowed hard, fighting against the tide of uncertainty washing over her. You can try. She shouted back, as the crowd inhaled together, caught in her resolve. But I will not stop fighting for those who have no voice. I will not be intimidated. Her declaration resonated in the silence of the hall. The resolve in her heart emboldened the others. They all stood as witnesses to this moment, an awakening of sorts. Walls built by years of wealth and privilege were starting to crack, but beyond the surface applause lay an unsettling truth. Would this newfound courage hold, or would the threat of retaliation drown their hopes? In the back of her mind, a million questions spun. What would be lost in this battle for justice? What could she face when she returned home? Then came a voice from the crowd, piercing through her tumultuous thoughts. Alma. We'll stand with you. As she turned her head, a swell of relief rushed through her. It was Mia and Leo's classmates, stepping forward alongside their families, united in solidarity. But as smiles spread, Alma realized the conflict was far from over. Together, we can make a difference. She responded, her voice thick with emotion. But deep inside, dread coiled tightly. What would be the next step? Would they be ready to rally against their oppressor, or would fear pull them back? The battle line had been drawn, and every heartbeat echoed a question: who would be willing to risk everything for change? Alma stood tall, her heart racing, as those familiar faces gathered around her. The sheer force of support was palpable, lifting her spirit. Gone was the monotonous hum of the ballroom, now it was alive, pulsating with possibility. Still, that knot of fear twisted in her stomach, reminding her of the chaotic storm brewing beyond this moment. Listen. She called out, looking into the eyes of everyone who dared stand with her. This is only the beginning. We need a plan. We can't just feel inspired, we must take action. The words strung together in a hasty rhythm, urgency sparking in the air like fireworks. The crowd murmured among themselves, voices rising in excitement and uncertainty. Someone shouted, "We can organize a meeting. Discuss real change." The suggestion rippled throughout the room, igniting fresh energy. Alma felt gratitude swell in her chest. They believed in something greater, yet, in the depths of her mind, the sheik's threats hung over her like a cloud. What if he acts first? What if he punishes those who help? The doubts gnawed at her, but she took a deep breath, forcing the thoughts away. I can't let fear dictate my choices. Just then, the sheik stepped forward, eyes blazing with fury. This madness stops now. His voice boomed, sharp and slicing through the chatter like glass shattering. There was no denying the fierce energy radiating from him. Alma's chest tightened, but she stood her ground, refusing to let his presence wither her bravery. We will not be silenced. She shouted with more conviction, her voice echoing against the high ceilings. The shouts of the crowd surged, filled with righteous anger. They were hungry for change, hungry for a chance to speak up. The sheik's face hardened, taut like a drawn bow. You think this is a game? I hold power over you all, he warned, but Alma's spirit remained unyielded. The elderly gentleman who had clapped earlier stepped forward once more. You may hold wealth, but we hold the strength of our community. His voice rang true, and a fire ignited within the crowd, a profound sense of unity that defied everything the sheik stood for. People linked arms, forming a human chain of solidarity, a living wall against oppression. A chant erupted, echoing through the grand hall, a rhythmic beat sinking their hearts. Together. 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 It felt like a declaration, a rallying cry that would chase away shadows of fear and intimidation. Alma found herself caught in the exhilaration, her heart soaring despite the looming threat. The nervous chatter shifted into a frenzy of ideas. The meeting was decided. The seeds of change had been planted, but just as enthusiasm surged, a shadow fell over her thoughts. What plans could they devise against a sheik who wielded both influence and resources? Doubt flickered like a candle flame, and beneath the vibrancy of action, a question lingered: would they have the courage to follow through once reality struck? Even in the brilliance of the moment, the heaviness of uncertainty loomed ahead. As she caught sight of Leo and Mia, her resolve strengthened, but so did her fears of what lay ahead. Then it happened. An unexpected shout from the corner of the room broke through the chanting, ripping her from her thoughts. What if we remind him of his own history? What if we show him the power of the past? The crowd fell silent, every gaze now resting on Alma. Hope dashed against dread in her heart. The sheik had once been one of them, once raised by humble beginnings. Could this conversation sway him? Could they appeal to the humanity she believed he had buried? Alma soaked in the moment, awaiting the answer as the crowd whispered, excitement electrifying the air once again. She could feel the ground shift beneath their feet. Change was on the horizon, but at what cost? What awaited them on this new path of confrontation? Would old ties of humanity awaken the sheik, or would it spark a fire that burned too bright? As Alma lifted her chin, anticipation mixed with suspense set the stage for what would come next. The tension in the ballroom thickened as Alma's heart raced. Everyone was waiting, eyes locked on her, waiting for what would come next. She blinked, determination flooding her veins. We're not just going to remind him of his past. We'll show him the strength of our present. The words unleashed a wave of murmurs through the crowd. People began nodding, some sharing glances as if sparking a silent agreement. It felt like they were all connected, an electric pulse that surged with the promise of hope. Alma planted her feet firmly on the ground, feeling the weight of their collective drama. This wasn't just her fight anymore, it belonged to everyone. Let us create a plan, she said, voice steady despite the uncertainty swirling within. We need stories, real stories from real people. The sheik may hold power, but we can remind him of what he left behind. We must unearth the humanity he seems to have forgotten. Leo stepped forward, his brow furrowed in concentration. What if we gather testimonials? Share tales of struggle and triumph? Let him see what his decisions have directly impacted. Yes. Someone in the crowd shouted, reigniting the chatter. What if we organize a showcase? Mia added, her enthusiasm bubbling. We could hold it in the town square, invite everyone, even him. Show the community we won. Stay silent. Excitement rippled through the crowd, the air alive and buzzing with fresh ideas. Alma glanced around, meeting the optimistic glances of her friends. This idea wasn't hers alone, it became theirs, a shared vision formed from their connection and shared purpose, but as the planning buzzed, doubt crept back, soft but relentless. What if they attracted not just attention but wrath? Would appealing to the sheik's humanity put them in more danger? She tucked her worries deep, forcing herself to focus on the power in the room. The sheik, now just a few feet away, glowered at them, anger seeping through the tight lines of his mouth. He could sense the shift in energy, it frightened him. Alma noticed his clenched fists, and for a brief heartbeat, she felt a flicker of concern for the man who had once been part of this very community. But what if we confront him in a different way? Her voice, soft yet unwavering, cut through the crowd. What if we humanize him? Show him that our lives aren't just statistics? We all feel pain. We all want a voice, she continued, almost pleading with his hidden self. The sheik snorted disdainfully. You think you can sway me with mere stories? You underestimate the grip I have on this place. Unfazed, Alma stepped forward. She felt the courage swell inside her. You may think you hold the robes of power, but the truth is, those robes are woven with the fabric of our stories. Every person in this room has a past, a fight, and their right to be heard. Those stories cannot be silenced forever. The crowd erupted. It was a symphony of voices, filled with hope and trepidation, a chorus of hearts crying out for fairness. Alma felt more alive than ever, her spirit fueled by their energy. This was the moment where fear met bravery, and she realized they could make a difference. With their voices united, they were powerful. Then, a sudden silence fell, all eyes darting to the sheik. He stood rigid, his expression conflicted, caught between disbelief and hesitation. She could almost see the gears turning in his mind as those stories swirled around him like whispers of the past he had tried so hard to bury. Alma's heart raced again, unsure if this was the moment of reckoning or a deceptive calm before an inevitable storm. Had she pushed enough? Could they have the courage to see this through? As the crowd held its collective breath, uncertainty mingled with hope. Alma had opened a door, but would the sheik step through? What awaited them all if he did? The room stood at a precipice, teetering on the edge of change. Would they rise together, or would this confrontation ignite tumult beyond their wildest fears? The weight of that question hung heavy in the air, begging for an answer that only the coming days would reveal. As the silence stretched out, Alma could feel the gaze of the sheik like hot coals on her skin. His breath quickened, but his veneer of authority remained unbroken. Yet, beneath that facade stirred something deeper, an unsettling awareness that he was no longer the sole voice in the room. Go on, he challenged, a slight tremor betraying his bravado. Tell me a story. Taking a deep breath, Alma seized the moment. Let us begin with a story about Maria, she said, glancing toward a woman at the edge of the crowd, who had lost her husband to the poverty that encircled their town. Maria fought to provide for her children, working 2 jobs. She struggled to make ends meet but never lost her spirit. The room hung on her every word as Alma continued. Every time she was near giving up, she would think of her children and how they deserved a brighter future. Her voice grew stronger. It was that determination right in her heart that made the difference. Leo took a step forward, joining in. And let us not forget Malik, he said, pointing to another man. He built a school out of nothing, dedicating his life to teaching others. His sacrifice changed lives, it offered hope. A ripple of murmurs spread among the crowd, faces lighting up with recognition as familiar names surfaced. Stories began to flow, a chorus of shared experiences, heartbreaks, and victories that intertwined like a tapestry, full of color and life. With every anecdote, Alma noticed the sheik's expression shift. His eyes flickered, reflecting shadowed memories. For the first time, a crack appeared in his front. He was hearing them, not just listening, but feeling. I'm just a cleaner, one elderly woman spoke finally, voice shaking but resolute. But I clean every corner of this town because it's my home. What do you think happens when you forget those who serve? You forget the very ground you stand on. The words landed like stones in a still pond. Alma felt the heat rise in her chest. This was a reckoning wrapped in vulnerability. These stories show the strength in struggle, she declared. You can't ignore us. We matter. Our lives matter. The weight of the crowd surged, shouts of agreement and encouragement crackling in the air. Some had tears in their eyes. Others wore fierce determination etched in every line of their faces. They were ready. They had come alive in this moment, a collective heartbeat echoing in the ornate hall. Yet, even as hope unfurled like a flower in spring, doubt still churned within Alma. What if they pushed too far? What if the sheik snapped? As emotions ignited, she cast another glance at him. He was still, but the shift was palpable. A battle raged behind those guarded eyes, the desire to maintain control wrestling with the reality of his past mistakes clashing with the living, breathing present. Suddenly, he opened his mouth, and the crowd hushed, anticipation prickling in the air. "You think your stories will change anything?" His voice was low, skeptical, but just then, Alma noticed something. Was it fear? Or was it something else? Perhaps remorse? She held her breath, readying her heart for whatever might come next. Then, in a moment that felt stretched like eternity, the Sheik's fingers trembled, and a single tear slipped down his cheek. The crowd leaned closer, barely breathing, as the weight of revelation hung between them. Had they tapped into a hidden truth? Could the Sheik truly reflect on the beauty of their stories? Alma stepped forward, heart racing. "What will you do now?" she asked, her voice steady and low. All eyes were on him, waiting. Would he respond? Would this confrontation unlock the compassion they all sought? The answer lay suspended in the air, challenging them all to believe in transformation. The Sheik's eyes glistened with unshed tears, a storm swirling within them. The air was thick with tension, every breath drawn in anticipation of his response. Alma felt a tremor race through her body, as the collective hope and fear of the crowd surged around her. It was now or never. He wiped the tear away fiercely, as if trying to erase that moment of vulnerability, but it was too late. The crowd had seen it. A crack had appeared in the armor he wore, and the stories they shared wouldn't let him retreat into the shadows anymore. "You ask what I will do?" His voice, though strained, held a tremor of uncertainty. "You believe your stories can unravel a life built on power and privilege?" Alma stepped closer, her heart pounding in her chest. "These stories are not just words, they are our lives. You can't just brush them aside. We've fought too hard to be heard." A flicker of confusion crossed the Sheik's face. "I've never had to hear them or anyone else. I've built towers while others struggled." Silence enveloped them, broken only by the rustle of a distant garment. The crowd, once so vibrant, held their breaths, each person leaning in slightly as if drawn by an invisible force. "I understand now," the Sheik continued slowly, words spilling out as if pushed from somewhere deep within. "I was wrong to distance myself from everything that doesn't fit my world." There was a soft gasp from the back of the room. "This pain, this unity you speak of, it's real. But can I change? Can I?" He grimaced, teeth biting into his lip as regret flooded his features. "You don't know where I come from. The decisions I've made, they haunt me." Alma felt her heart ache for him. Perhaps this was the moment they had all waited for. But they don't have to define you. You can choose to change, to listen, to learn. A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. They rallied to her, faces leaning into each other, coaxing the Sheik's heart to open more. Leo stepped up. "We need to work together. You have power, but you also have the chance to be a voice for those who are unheard." The Sheik stared into the faces around him, the weight of their desperate hopes now pressing down on him. "You want me to take a step toward you?" he asked, his voice quivering slightly. "Yes," Alma urged, feeling the surge of something powerful. "Not just for us, but for yourself. You've carried your burden long enough. Let it go." For a second, uncertainty flared in his eyes, but then something shifted. It was a glimmer of acceptance. "I am so lost," he admitted. "But I want to know, will you help me?" An explosion of agreement erupted from the crowd. Cheers and shouts of affirmation filled the room. Everyone was ready to guide him, wanting to bridge the chasm that had divided them for so long. Alma felt a rush of joy brimming within her. Tears now spilled freely from her eyes. Together, she whispered, the spirit of the moment weaving all of them, all their hopes, into something much larger. As laughter and excitement filled the air, the Sheik lifted his head, for the first time showing a hint of vulnerability mixed with something akin to hope. "Then let us begin," he declared, drawing the crowd in closer as if shielding them from a world that had tried to keep them apart. The visceral joy was palpable, transforming the ornate hall into a sanctuary of resilience. "We have stories to tell, and I'm ready to listen." But just as the crowd erupted into applause, a heavy footstep echoed from the entranceway, drawing everyone's gaze. A figure stood in the shadows, wearing an expression of malice that sent a shiver through the air. "Is this how low we've fallen, Sheik?" The figure sneered, voice dripping with disdain. "You would throw away everything for these insignificant lives?" The joy shattered, replaced with tension as the crowd braced for confrontation. All eyes turned back to the Sheik, fear rekindled in hearts where hope had just blossomed. What would he choose now? Would he stand firm, or would the weight of his past pull him back into darkness? The question hung in the air, heavy and unyielding. The moment was electric. The Sheik's gaze was locked onto the shadowy figure, but his heart was simultaneously tethered to the crowd. Fear infused the air, thick and suffocating, as Alma held her breath, her pulse quickening. The voice echoed around them, a dagger aimed squarely at the Sheik's tentative resolve. With every muscle in his body tight, the Sheik stepped forward, pulling the weight of their collective hope onto his shoulders. "These lives mean something. They inspire, they unite." His own voice surprised him, rising with fervor he'd never felt before. The figure in the shadows snorted dismissively. "Oh, how quaint. You really think you can change your nature? You, an insignificant puppet, would tear down towers built on fear and obedience?" The crowd murmured, anxious now, their faith flickering. Alma could see the doubt creep into the Sheik's eyes. It was as if the darkness was calling him back, whispering bitter lies he had long since buried. "I am not a puppet," he asserted, voice trembling. "And you do not hold my strings." Alma sensed the shift, like a dam about to burst, courage flared in him. She took a step closer, refusing to let fear win. "Remember who you are," she urged softly but firmly. "You are not defined by walls or towers. You have the chance to be something greater." The figure laughed bitterly, stepping into the light. It was a man dressed in lavish silk, arrogance wrapped around him like a cloak. "You mistake a grand title for power. You don't know how the world truly works. You're dreaming." "I was living in a dream," the Sheik snapped, an unexpected fire blooming in his chest. "And now, I see the truth. I've been blind for too long." Gasps filled the hall. People leaned in, eyes wide. Alma's heart raced. This was at the moment that could pivot their fates. "Listen," the Sheik continued, finding strength within as a tide of determination swept through him. "My decisions have created divides, but I want to create connections now. I've damaged too much, I want to heal. Are you willing to destroy everything you've built for this facade?" The man's voice was cold, yet tinged with a hint of desperation. "They do not care for you, they care for what you can provide." A hand shot up from the crowd. "We care for you." It was Leo, now stepping forward with Alma by his side. "The people are not your enemies. We want you to stand with us, to fight alongside us." That plea rang through the room like a bell, echoing deep into the Sheik's heart. He felt the warmth of unity wrap around him, solid and unyielding. "I am willing," he declared, strong now. "I might lose everything, but I refuse to let that paralyze me." But the shadows stirred again, the figure shaking his head, fury rising like smoke. "You think this is a game? You will pay dearly for defiance," he snarled, eyes narrowing dangerously. The crowd stiffened, instinctually drawing closer, merging into one body against the threat. The Sheik glanced around, and in that moment, he felt the pulse of hope surge through him. "I am done living for my own desires. I will walk this path with them." Cheers erupted, drowning out the negativity. Every cheer shattered fear, every shout fused their hearts. Alma felt a wild joy erupt in her as she saw the Sheik morph into a leader before her eyes. "Together," she called, the word a lifeline guiding them all, yet even in their triumph, a chill swept through the hall, cutting the warmth. The figure simply stood there, a smirk stretching across his face, that malice still lingering as though a storm loomed just outside. Together? You don't even know the half of it, he warned, thick with ominous certainty. The crowd shivered, their newfound hope caught in a current of unseen danger. What more lay ahead? Would the Sheik's resolve stand against the gathering storm? The question lingered, haunting, as anticipation mounted for what would come next. The tension in the room was palpable, thick as molasses. The Sheik's heart hammered against his chest. He could feel every set of eyes on him, expectant, hopeful. The weight of their trust unnerved him. He had stumbled this path before, blinded by ambition. But here, surrounded by these people who had come to mean everything to him, he felt something shift. Everything was at stake, yet he felt more alive than ever. The shadowy figure's smirk deepened, the arrogance dripping from his words. You're a fool if you think they'll follow your lead against me. Power doesn't just fade away, my dear Sheik. It clings fiercely like a vice around your throat. Alma stepped up beside the Sheik, fire blazing in her eyes. You're wrong. We choose our path. We're not afraid anymore. Her voice rolled through the hall, igniting the passion that lay dormant in the crowd. A murmur of agreement rippled through the audience, like a wave crashing forward. Do you think shouting will shield you from the real world? The figure shot back, dismissing her with a wave of his hand, but Alma saw the flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. You're playing a dangerous game, not a game, the Sheik spoke, voice steady. A revolution. With that declaration, a wave of energy swept through the crowd. They leaned in, shoulders touching, forming an unbreakable barrier of unity. For the first time, the Sheik recognized their underlying strength, a collective spirit ignited by shared desire, hope, and courage. The figure in silk had underestimated the heart of the people. Every voice matters. Leo's shout rang clear, echoing against the aged walls. Together we can rise against oppression. The room erupted in cheers, hands raised high, faces flushed with conviction, but the tension still loomed in the air as the figure's expression darkened. You really think I will let this go without a fight? Every empire starts small, and I promise you, you will suffer the consequences of this insurrection. His laugh was chilling, a sound that seemed to wrap around the crowd like a snake tightening its grip. The Sheik felt his pulse race. Fear has ruled for too long. I'm ready to stand against it. His voice was thunderous, shaking the very foundations of the hall. The crowd responded fiercely, a chorus of voices crying for change, yet, a sinking feeling lodged in the pit of his stomach. Fear had a way of creeping back, clawing at his resolve. It was one thing to declare intention, another to bear the challenge that loomed. Alma turned to him, eyes probing, searching. Do you really mean it? She asked softly. Can you really set aside everything you've built? His heart ached at the weight of her question. The moment stretched like a taut string about to snap. He had spent so long building a fortress, only to realize it was a cage. Could he live with himself if he didn't try? If he didn't seize this moment? The people's faces glimmered with hope, and he knew that he couldn't shrink back. I want to change, he whispered, loud enough for her to hear, but it swelled into a roar that resonated through the crowd. I need to change. Just then, the figure stepped back, eyes narrowed with fury. You will regret this decision. Mark my words. The crowd gasped, an exhilarating mix of fear and adrenaline. But the Sheik stood firm, heart racing with the knowledge that they were all now on this path together. Yet as they rallied with renewed fervor, the air shifted again, an ominous silence creeping in. It was as if they were not just standing against one man, but a shadow lurking over an entire world. What secrets lay behind those veiled threats? What sacrifices would they have to make in this fight for freedom? The Sheik's resolve hardened. It was one thing to declare intent, but the real journey ahead would test them all in ways unimaginable. As the crowd surged with chants of unity, the figure simply watched, his twisted smile growing, an unsettling promise shrouded in darkness. What would it take to face the storm? Would they all hold together when the winds of change began to howl? The questions hung heavy in the air, setting the stage for whatever lay ahead. The atmosphere in the ballroom felt electric, charged with a mix of anticipation and fear. Alma stood at the forefront, her heart pounding fiercely. The Sheik, once an embodiment of privilege and power, now found himself entwined in a collective fight for justice. With each breath, Alma felt the gravity of the moment. This was the climax they had all fought for. The figure lurking in the shadows, draped in arrogance and contempt, remained a dark specter threatening to unravel the hopeful tapestry they had begun to weave. But Alma refused to let fear dictate their destiny. She turned toward the crowd, courage radiating from her with every word. This isn't just about the Sheik or his wealth, it's about all of us. Every story we've shared, every struggle we've endured, it's time to rise as one. The crowd stirred with approval, their faces reflecting the fiery passion she had ignited. She could see it in their eyes, the desire for change, the determination to be heard. They were ready to confront not just the Sheik but an unyielding system that had kept them silent for far too long. As Alma led the charge, the Sheik stood resolute, an unexpected strength emerging within him. "I was lost," he began, his voice echoing through the room. "I've buried my past to gain fortunes and privileges, thinking it made me happy. But in truth, it has distanced me from you all, the very people I once called family." It was a moment of vulnerability. Slowly, the tension began to dissipate, giving way to an undercurrent of hope. "I want to change," he declared firmly, his gaze sweeping over the crowd. "I want to use my power to lift us all up, not hold us down." Gasps rippled through the audience, but there was a sense of cautious optimism building. But the figure remained, picking at the nerves of doubt. "You can't change who you are," he spat, voice dripping with scorn. "You'll always be that weak man hiding behind wealth." Yet, Alma could see the shift. People were no longer afraid. They were emboldened by the Sheik's newfound resolve. "Together!" Alma shouted, the call ripping through the gloom. "Let us prove him wrong. Let us show him what unity looks like." The room erupted in cheers, chants echoing off marble walls. "Together! Together! Together!" Each voice was a drumbeat of hope. The shadowy figure's smirk faltered. Before him stood a wall of courageous souls unwilling to retreat. "Unity will always overcome greed," the Sheik stated passionately. "It's time for me to listen." Suddenly, he turned toward the figure, standing firm. "I will not be afraid anymore. I will not return to darkness." Alma felt a wave of relief wash over her, but her heart remained vigilant. The threats, however empty they felt now, lingered heavy in the air. "Let us show everyone the power of our stories," she encouraged. "Let us bridge the divides he believes can never be crossed." As the crowd began to organize their thoughts into a framework of action, ideas flowed and strategized like a river into a flood. Billboards, community meetings, and public outreach, each plan hatching with possibility. "Let us invite the Sheik to our town square gathering," someone shouted, kindling excitement. "Let him see what we've built, what we fight for." But anxiety still knotted in Alma's stomach, feeling the weight of unresolved tension. Even as excitement surged through the room, she couldn't ignore the threat that still lurked in the shadows. But she also saw the potential for healing, for connection. And beyond the call for justice, a path forward emerged. The Sheik nodded firmly. "I will be there," he promised, voice strong. Each word reverberated through the crowd, igniting more fervor. "I will let you show me how I can help." As the cheers reached a crescendo, Alma felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. This wasn't merely her victory, but a victory for every voice that had been silenced, every story lost in the rush of greed. It was a testament to what could arise when a community united in purpose. But then, that figure stirred again, a desperate flicker haunting his gaze. "You think this is over?" he sneered. "You think you can change the world?" Ideas born from hardship are no match for power. The Sheik stepped forward, a glimmer of resolve shining. Then let me show you what unity can create, he declared, and the echo of his words resonated through every heart, grounding them in shared determination. In that moment, the air lightened, rippling with unity, as they decided together that whatever shadows threatened them, they would not turn back. They would write their stories across the very foundation the Sheik had built. Hope triumphed over fear. Alma turned back towards the crowd, eyes shimmering. "This is just the beginning," she said, finally unshackling the weight of fear that had held her down for so long. "We will rise together, and change is ours to create." As the shared visions took shape around them, Alma felt her spirit soar. That night, the ballroom, once filled with the weight of elitist celebration, transformed into a sanctuary overflowing with possibility. They were no longer defined by the barriers that had separated them. They were united in purpose, passion, and the freedom to forge a new narrative. The sheer force of that moment etched itself into their hearts, promising a future richly woven with stories of resilience. The fight had just begun, and with every heartbeat, the pulse of change reverberated stronger than ever before. This transformation was real. A community had awakened. As Alma basked in the warmth of the newfound hope, a whisper beckoned. They were ready to write the next chapter filled with voices strong and stories untold. The time for action had arrived, and they would walk this path of change, hand in hand, fostering a legacy that would illuminate the future for generations to come. And as she stepped out into the night, sunlight beginning to hint at dawn, a fierce determination surged. "I'm going to change this world." With that thought, the curtain fell on one chapter, and a new story began to unfold. This was the moment they had all dreamed of, a chance to transform not just their lives, but to inspire others watching from the shadows. Now it was time to share this light. So, you need to subscribe now to follow this journey. Don't miss out on the next exclusive stories that can change more lives. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and let others feel this wave of hope. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about this incredible ending. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Together, we can light the way for change. Don't wait not even one more second to share your voice. Let us amplify this message together.